Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. In part, we know that some folks are likely trickling a little bit late because of the weather, but we've also got many people online, including probably some people online who thought they were going to be here with us this morning, right, given the weather. So welcome to Minnesota Public Radio, to the UBS Forum. I'm Deshaun Drew. I'm the president of Minnesota Public Radio, and I have the joy of leading this partnership for our team with the folks at Little Moments Count. And so glad to have you all here with us today. I look forward to this event every year. Today marks the 10th year that members of our early childhood community have come together to celebrate our collective work to build a bright future starting in early childhood. Back then, the name Little Moments Count hadn't yet been conceived, but the driving force behind this movement had begun and has only grown stronger since then. When I joined Little Moments Count, the team in 2020, when I took this role, the collaborative was building momentum. We had 35 partners back then, and that felt really meaningful because it was. We had a commitment from health partners and NPR to provide in-kind staff and other support to build this sort of shared initiative and build awareness about the importance of early brain development. Today, NPR and health partners remain deeply committed to this work because we know that together, now with more than 120 partners, think about that, 35 to 120, right? As part of the Little Moments Count initiative, we can achieve more than any of us could on our own. So the strength of this movement is growing, and I want to thank you all, whether you're here in person or online, for leaning in with us and making this possible. So as a news organization, Minnesota Public Radio is about helping people stay connected to the world, to their communities, and to each other. And when it comes to Little Moments Count, we do this by bringing to the table what we do best in this whole radio world, which is to amplify voices. Our on-air Little Moments Count spots can be heard on all 45 stations across the state of Minnesota and beyond, offering parenting tips and drawing attention to the resources offered on the Little Moments Count website. With support from Blue Cross Blue Shield, our early childhood reporting on NPR News covers a wide range of stories that are critical to parents, educators, policymakers, and a broad range of community members, all focused on the issues that are important to supporting young children and their families. Our partnerships with community also include our community radio stations KRSM in South Minneapolis, KMOJ in North Minneapolis, WFNU in Frogtown, here in St. Paul, and La Raza, the Spanish-speaking community that we brought into this a couple of years ago now. And I want to talk about that for a minute. That's a really important partnership. We're working really hard to, over time, reach out to a wider range of communities and build this partnership. I'm really deeply grateful. And we've got Maya Santa Maria in the house with us today from La Raza. We also have a partnership with Native Roots Radio, serving our indigenous communities. And the effort there is to bring information about early childhood in culturally appropriate ways to communities and neighborhoods throughout the state through their trusted messengers. And we launched, as you may know, Early Risers back in 2020 as well. That's a podcast about how to talk to young children about race and bias. It amplifies not only the voices of its founding host, Diane Halsey, and this year's new host, Andre Dukes, but it also amplifies the importance of teaching the next generation how to celebrate differences and see one another. At a time when there is a lot of effort being made to silence conversations about race, we know that a child's identity and understanding of who they are includes acknowledging how we're different and the same and giving them the language to talk about this. We want to raise healthy kids, healthy communities. So those are examples from NPR, just one partner in this collaborative of 128 organizations. Let's look at examples from another key partner in the Little Moments Count collaborative, Health Partners. By beginning the conversations that started the Little Moments Count work and bringing its healthcare expertise and community connection network to this collaborative, Health Partners has helped Little Moments Count grow to include 128 partners and to include 13 healthcare systems whose family and pediatric care providers are on the front lines of information sharing when it comes to educating parents about the role that they play in fostering critical brain development that takes place in the first 3 years of life. Whether sharing information with expectant new parents or providing Little Moments Count information and free reach out and read books at well child visits, our healthcare partners are critical to this work. These are just a few examples of how Little Moments Count partners bring the best of themselves to this partnership to build something greater than any of us could achieve alone. This collective work, this strength in numbers, is how we're meeting the moment together. Now, at a time of uncertainty for so many families with young children, this partnership reminds us that we're not alone. That we, all of you viewing today's event online, all of us in this room, reflect the diversity and strength and the resilience of this region. We are connectors. We help bring the best of ourselves and of the organizations we represent to one another and to the people we serve. It takes all of us to build a brighter future for Minnesota's littlest learners, and I'm grateful to be in partnership with all of you to make this happen. Now, I'm pleased to introduce Munira Malamasak, CEO of Inspire Change Clinic, who will share updates on Little Moments Count partnerships and programs during 2025. Munira?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Munira Malamasak. I am a family nurse practitioner and the founder of Inspire Change Clinic. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be a LMC partner and to share a little bit about our partnership. Inspire Change Clinic was created with a simple mission to improve health access or healthcare and remove barriers and improve health literacy in immigrant communities. Our goal was not to just show up in communities or places and just say, hey, we're here and we want to know everything that you guys are going through when it comes to health, and this is how you should take care of your kids, this is how you should take care of your family, but how do we embed ourselves in that community? The last 2 years, we started something called Motherhood Circle. With the Motherhood Circle, we talked about reading, we talked about vaccines, we talked about nutrition, all of that. And what does a preventative visit look like? What does a child health looks like? And what are some things that you could do with your kid? This was really important to us, especially after doing a partnership with LMC. And we learned that, especially in the Somali community, a lot of our patients or community members that we serve were not reading to their kids or were using TV as a babysitting tool, which is important too, because parents were working overnights and then in the morning they didn't have daycare, and that was a tool that they could use. But what are some other ways that we could help bridge that gap and tell them about the importance of reading from 0 to 3 and doing some were like, oh, I don't even read. So when I get a book for my child, we just look at the pictures. I was like, oh, we can tell stories with those pictures, and making that okay and how that is acceptable and storytelling to your kids. My mom will tell you that she may not watched a lot of movies growing up because the boys would watch it, but they would come home and tell her about the stories or the movie that they watched, and she remembers it bit by bit. So I was like, okay, let's do the same thing. Let's look at this picture and read to them and telling them about what we have learned with our partnership and why playing, reading, singing, practicing, all of that stuff is a bonding way for not just the development of that child, but family bonding, and how that is evidence-based in having healthier families. Once we were able to give them that bit of information, we saw a big difference in communities that were coming to our Saturday classes. We met biweekly, and we would bring it up in our surveys. More and more people were saying, yeah, I started doing this. My child started coming up to me and asking me questions about our history and our culture and all of that. So I am truly proud to do this project and work with LMC in promoting health literacy and cognitive growth in young children. Not only that, I love the mission of LMC. I love how they partner up with communities, and it's not from the top down, but more of community-based solutions to remove health disparities and well-being of the community and making them feel like they belong. Because of that, being here today was even if it snowed and I was like last night, do I want to go? It was really important for me to come and be part of this and to tell everyone what we have experienced and what my hope is for partnering up with communities. I really believe that the LMC, the way that they've done partnering up with communities, that is the way we should be partnering up with communities. And I hope to see more of that partnership continued and in reducing health disparities. Thank you so much. I am happy to be here today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name is Allison Corrado, and I work with the Blue Cross Foundation. And today I'm here representing the Start Early Funders Coalition. I chair the Public Policy Committee of the coalition. Start Early Funders is a collaboration of philanthropic partners across the state of Minnesota, all dedicated to improving the lives of children and their families. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you. We are so grateful for all of our past and current members who are funding and leading and trying new initiatives and piloting incredible work around the state that all impacts Minnesota's littlest learners. So our partnership with Little Moments Count is such a natural fit. I would like to invite everyone to join in on the conversation today. We have a couple of hashtags that you can use. Share your thoughts, things that you're thinking about the conversation, the awards, the keynote, the panel, and keep the conversation going. So for the last 19 years, early childhood champions have been given the prestigious Nancy Latimer Award to honor the legacy of Nancy Latimer. And if you don't know Nancy or haven't heard Nancy's name before, Nancy Latimer was a lifelong champion of early childhood through her work and through her family and her personal life. And the Start Early Funders started giving this award 19 years ago, which is unbelievable, to a recipient that embodies Nancy's tireless commitment to an impact on Minnesota's youngest children. So this award recognizes a champion's unique lifetime legacy in early childhood education, in supporting young children, and supporting families with young children. And when we look at awardees, we're looking for people that have an unwavering dedication and outstanding contributions to the well-being of young children. We look for somebody that has impacted the lives of children across the entire state. Somebody who has done work in policy, advocacy, mentorship, somebody who's really dedicated their life to improving the lives of young children. So our awardees are incredible people. They're folks that have demonstrated persistence, humility, courage, vision, tenacity among many challenges, and today is no different. For almost 20 years, the Nancy Latimer Awards have recognized these incredible leaders, and I just want to acknowledge that some of them are in the room today. Some of them are online. I've gotten text messages from many of them saying they wish they could be here. And two in particular, you may see speaking later in today. So some pretty incredible people. And so if you are a previous Nancy Latimer Award recipient, maybe give a little wave so folks can recognize you in the room. And we see you online too. So I am so honored to be here today. Again, we've done this partnership with Little Moments Count for several years now to announce the 2025 Nancy Latimer Award, who is Lee Turney. Lee Turney serves as the Early Childhood Development Director for the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe up in Cass Lake. And he is not able to be with us today because of this beautiful blizzard that we were blessed with. It's a long drive from Cass Lake. He has served in this position for the past 31 years, giving a lot of his life to this work. Lee has served on both national and state early childhood organizations that all advocate for, in his words, what he calls our most valued treasure, children from 6 weeks to 12. He has been known as the national talking head for Tribal Head Start, and his work is nationally known as he has served as the chair of the National Indian Head Start Association for many years. His advocacy over the years has been recognized by local, state, and national partners, as well as the Office of Head Start. Lee has helped shape tribal Head Start policies that support tribal nations, and he's created this incredible, amazing tribal early childhood program where he figured out, we know our childhood systems are complicated and hard to do new things with. He figured out how to combine Head Start and child care programming into one unified tribal early childhood system so that children, families, and staff all see themselves as part of one program. And this program is embedded with language and culture and a sense of belonging, which we know builds stronger and healthier children and families. Lee is a trailblazer, and many look to him for support and resources. And I just wanted to spend 1 second to reading a note from another previous Nancy Award recipient, Barb Faber, who just wanted to say an extra word of congratulations to Lee. She says, "First of all, Lee, thank you for your service to our country and to the many years you've dedicated to our youngest citizens and their families. Miigwech for being a tireless advocate for tribal early childhood field. You are a rock star, and I am proud to be one of your friends and allies. Congratulations. This award is much deserved, Niji." So let's congratulate Lee online and say thank you for his work. Next, we are honored to present the very first Little Moments Count St. Croix Valley First 1,000 Days Champion Award. This award was established to celebrate local individuals, organizations, or coalitions throughout the St. Croix Valley who go above and beyond to support families and parents during the first 3 years of a child's life. This award recognizes those who show up with care and consistency and compassion to walk alongside families during this transformative and important time. And this was Little Moments Count in the St. Croix Valley's first year launching this award, and we're truly moved by the numerous thoughtful nominations that came in from across the Valley communities. So it was very clear that the region is full of people who care very deeply about families, doing meaningful, often quiet, behind-the-scenes work to make sure that every child has what they need to thrive. While choosing just one champion was not easy, today we are thrilled to recognize a team of people whose impact has been deeply felt by the people around them. I am so honored to share this year's winner of the 2025 First 1,000 Days Champion Award is Pierce County, Wisconsin, Birth to 3 team. Let's give them a round of applause. The Birth to 3 program is a statewide initiative committed to serving children under the age of 3 with developmental delays and disabilities. By partnering with families, the program enhances each child's development while strengthening families' knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to support their child's growth. But what truly sets this team apart is how far they go beyond the state and federal requirements of the program. They listen deeply and they meet families where they're at and work tirelessly to secure every possible resource, often giving more of themselves than anyone would expect. In 2024, the team secured 2 grants that allowed them to build a free adaptive equipment and sensory lending library, ensuring that the children that they serve with disabilities can access critical tools even when insurance is unavailable or delayed. Their advocacy and community impact is equally exceptional. Last year, the team hosted Senator Rob Schafscholt to highlight the life-changing impact and powerful return on investment of early childhood intervention. So please join me in congratulating once again the Pierce County Public Health Birth to 3 team for their extraordinary work. And can we give one more round of applause to Lee Turney so he really feels it online? Thank you.
So there's one more award we'd like to celebrate today. In October, we were informed that Early Risers had been named Black Podcasting Awards 2025 winner as the best family and parenting podcast. This is the second consecutive year that Early Risers has been honored with this award. So this morning, I would like to present the award to Early Risers founding host Diane Halsey and to its current host, Andre Dukes. Congratulations to you both.
Well, I guess I'll say something first. Hello, everyone. This is amazing. And thank you, Deshaun, for giving us this exposure to an incredible conversation that has to happen. When we think about identity formation, it's important that we talk to children about race and that we have language to do so. And so I am just so pleased to be a part of this incredible vision that Diane Halsey started some 5 years ago now. And I'm looking forward to keeping this train moving because we got to have the conversation.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Andre, and thank you, Dasheen, for not only your support, but NPR's support of Early Risers since the beginning, and not wanting to shy away from the conversation. I wanted to start a conversation about how we talk to young children about race. I honestly have to say, I never thought this conversation would be going on 5 years later. But I'm so glad that it is, and I'm so glad that the community has really leaned into this conversation and really supported it and continues to have it. So thank you. Thank you all. And thanks. And a special thank you to Andre for taking up the mantle and doing such a fantastic job at doing this last season. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I have been asked to talk a little bit about meeting the moment this morning. Again, I'm Diane Halsey. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Early Childhood at the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And I want to thank you for inviting me today to talk about this, as well as a little later, I'll be introducing one of my favorite people. So I actually joined the steering committee of Little Moments Count almost since the beginning, about 10 years ago. And it was a place where people came together with a common goal to encourage parents and caregivers to bond with their young children by talking, reading, and singing. So it is especially appropriate for us to come together once again after celebrating our 10th year, even though we are facing difficult times. We're seeing drawbacks on DEI and equity, cuts to federal funding. So this year's theme, Meeting the Moment, is particularly powerful because in early childhood, the moment is never abstract. It's real, it's urgent, and it is shaped by the lives of the children and families that we serve every day. So for me, meeting the moment means understanding what children and families need right now, today, and responding with care, creativity, and courage. And right now, this moment requires us all to stay grounded in hope, even when the environment around us feels challenging. We are all navigating a very precarious political environment. Many of the initiatives that were built to advance equity, fairness, and justice, And it's not lost on me that many of the people in this room are those that have been fighting for these very things for many years are being rolled back. And across the country, the work of centering families, honoring culture, and addressing disparities is becoming even more difficult to talk about publicly. And that can create fear and fatigue and uncertainty, especially in our professional spaces. But I want to ground us in this truth today. Children have not changed, families have not changed, and their needs have not changed. And our responsibility to them has not changed. Thank you. Even in this climate, early childhood leaders across Minnesota continue to show up, continue to lead, and continue to innovate. And that, in and of ourselves, is an act of hope. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of what is the Department of Children, Families, and Learning doing to meet the moment. So a brief tutorial on who we are. We're still relatively new, just over a year old. And we believe that supporting a child means supporting the entire ecosystem around that child. So that's their caregivers, their communities, their educators. This is what we call the whole family approach. So we have 4 divisions, each with a unique but interconnected role in supporting Minnesota families. The first one, of course, is the one that I'm over, early childhood. Not the best, but but I'm a little biased. But early childhood provides programs to help young children get a strong start through quality and affordable childcare and early learning. Secondly, we have child safety and permanency, ensures children are protected and families have pathways to stability. Third, we have family well-being, helps families access supports and resources that strengthen households and families. And lastly, economic opportunity and youth services, which helps youth and families by offering services and supports that foster economic opportunity, stability, and youth development. So together, these divisions or administrations work toward one shared mission, and that is to help families thrive so children can thrive. So I wanted to just mention a little bit about how we at DCYF are meeting this moment. And so I want to share with you just a couple of examples. As you all know, we just came off of one of our country's longest federal government shutdown in our country's history. And many things were up in the air during this federal shutdown. One of them was that Head Start grantees who receive their grants directly from the federal government, if they were in part of their if they were up to receive their new grant for the year, all of that stopped. And in fact, around the country, the last I heard, approximately 40 Head Start programs had to close their doors because of this. And it's not like flipping a switch when the government comes back on to open those programs back up. So in Minnesota, we worked really hard so that none of our programs had to shut their doors. And so what we did was allow programs to use their state dollars in those programs, and there was 4 of them that had no funding going into November that were able to use their state dollars to float them until the government came back online. So I'm happy to say this morning that none of our programs in Minnesota, our Head Start programs, had to shut its doors during the federal shutdown. Secondly, and I will say, even though the federal shutdown was difficult, I have never been prouder to be a member of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families than as I watched how my colleagues handled the SNAP benefits during the federal shutdown. Not only did our governor initially ensure that there was an extra $4 million that went to food banks, but our entire staff, over many legal battles, interspersed throughout legal battles, ensured that not only did Each of our SNAP recipients in Minnesota get their SNAP benefits on time, but some of them even got them early in the event that the legal proceedings came down, which they did actually, came down and said that we could not give benefits to people that were on SNAP. So in Minnesota, everybody that was supposed to get their SNAP benefits, I'm happy to say, got their SNAP benefits in November. So those are just a couple ways that we have been meeting this moment. And one of the things, lastly, I want to say as we move on, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I don't know if many of you have heard the term Black joy. And Black joy is a term used often in the African American community to say that even though there have been hard things that we have had to go through, even though we have had to deal with oppression, we have had to deal with economic, health issues, you name it, we are not going to allow these circumstances to steal the joy inside of us. And so that statement saying, I'm not going to allow this circumstance to steal my joy, is an act of resistance. And so I give that to you, I offer that to you up to say, in meeting this moment, do not let our circumstances, the political situations that we are dealing with today, steal the joy inside of you, to steal your drive and your hope for a better world. So I offer that to you this morning. So next, I am really excited to introduce to you our speaker for this morning, Andre Dukes, Vice President of Community Power and Impact at the Northside Achievement Zone. So about 30 years ago, I was attending a church where a young man joined his mother and became an instant inspiration to us all. Fast forward a few years, when the Northside Achievement Zone was getting off the ground, this same young preacher joined in the door-to-door knocking in North Minneapolis as we asked families what their hopes and dreams were for their children. I was working at another nonprofit at the time in North Minneapolis when an opportunity came along for me to recommend somebody for a new program on infant and early childhood mental health credential. And I was able to recommend Andre Dukes for that program. And so today, Andre is a respected leader in building cradle-to-career, place-based networks that support children and families. At Northside Achievement Zone, he strengthens community partnerships and leads strategies that help families thrive. He founded Family Academy, an evidence-based parent program, and has worked to empower parents to support their children. He is a strong advocate for not only early childhood, but for father engagement. And he co-authored work that inspired the Proud Papa curriculum. He holds a master's degree in applied child and adolescent development from the University of Minnesota. He teaches in the infant and early childhood mental health program and has served on multiple statewide early childhood boards. And as was mentioned, he is now the current host of the Early Risers podcast. But more than that, he is a dear friend and a phenomenal speaker. So we are in for a treat this morning. Come on up, Andre.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. I can't believe you went back 30 years on me. Like, I can't tell that 20-year-old lie anymore. It's like, okay, now the cat is out the bag. I'm over 30, okay? All right, all right. Well, hello, Little Moments Count. Happy 10-year anniversary. What an amazing day this is. I first of all just want to thank Dushan Drew again for hosting us and for just being a supporter of our work. And we just are truly grateful for all that you do for Little Moments Count. I want to thank Pahua and the health partners for all of the support and work that you have given over the years. My friend Allison, listen, the Start Early group has been a supporter. You have been a supporter of ours, and we're just so grateful for all of you and for all of the Little Moments Count partners and just supporting the vision that we started out with over 10 years ago. And I want to thank Frank Forsberg and Thea Bryant for being the glue of the work that we have done over these years. 10 years. I couldn't believe it, but I also just want to thank all of you that are here in the room today. You are champions. You are savage. You came through the snow today. You made it. And to all of you that are watching online, drinking your coffee, sipping your tea, we just want to say hello to you. We miss having you here today. Listen, this is truly an honor for me. 2025 has been a pivotal year in my life. Started out being the host or taking over as host of the Early Risers podcast, which has been a tremendous stretch for me. This is not something that I am good at, that I feel like I'm good at. I'm learning as I go, but it has really stretched me and made me a better leader to have these critical conversations. And so I just want to thank Diane again for her vision and for being a trailblazer in this work. But, after or upon becoming the new host of the Early Risers podcast, I also was able to get some information concerning the death of my biological father. After 55 years, I learned the circumstances behind his death, which he died in the same location as George Floyd. And so the first episode of the podcast, we did it live from location at George Floyd Square, and I was able to share my story. But even in that moment, I hadn't heard the critical details of how he lost his life, and I won't get into that. But it is something that has really transformed my life and filled a lot of voids as well. I had a lot of questions all my life, but this year I was finally able to get those questions answered and to move forward, and so I'm grateful for that. But then in May of this year, I was diagnosed with stage 2 intermittent prostate cancer and had to go through a surgery in September. And I'm proud to say today that I am 3 months cancer-free. And while I'm thankful I didn't have to go through treatment and all of that, it was still a journey, and there's, side effects and all of those things that you have to go through. But, I'm just thankful for life today. Can I just celebrate life today? And then just after my surgery, I'm almost a month in recovery, and the University of Minnesota Alumni Association wants to recognize me for the work that I do in the community. And I share all of that just to say that, this year has really been a year of adversity, but also accomplishment. And I have learned this year that adversity and accomplishment can take up the same space, but they don't have to define us, that they're really just markers on an incomplete story that is still being written. And I'm glad to say that my story is still being written today. But I'm also keenly aware that this year marks 3 years, or actually 5 years, since the pandemic, and we have, 3.6 million children who were born in the wake of a global pandemic. They have now entered kindergarten, and while they may not have understood the concept of a pandemic, the environment around them shaped and influenced their early development. Infants and toddlers experience the pandemic mostly through changes in their caregivers' availability due to stress, the environment that was provided for them, But while some missed out on social exposure, we also know that others gained more direct time with families, so was able to spend more time with them. And research is still ongoing about the long-term developmental impacts, but many young children are showing resilience, as Diane talked about, as routines are now starting to normalize. And so we understand that, we've had some challenges, but babies are still being born. Development is still happening, right? And many of our children are thriving, right? But the reality is not all of our children are thriving. And until we can say that all children are thriving as a result of the environments that we create for them and the supports that we provide to them, then we all, every one of us in this room, everyone online, everyone at the state capitol, we all have some work to do. And so I just want to emphasize that because a year into the pandemic, I was invited to become an instructor in the infant observation course of the Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Certificate Program, which is now a master's program at the University of Minnesota. And for the past 4 years, I have had the distinct honor to follow 20 babies in their first full year of life through the reflections of students who spent 1 hour each week going into the homes of their families, virtually and in person, to observe the development of these precious lives within the context of their home environment and beyond. And I can tell you that no family is the same. I can tell you stories about all 20 different families, but yet they were still able to provide the supports and the environment for their babies to thrive, right? And so infant observation is relatively new to many in the field. We've not been exposed to it as much, although it has been around for a while. But it has its roots in psychoanalytic training and child development studies. The practice was pioneered by Esther Bick in the 40s and 50s as part of a clinical training for psychoanalysts and child psychotherapists. And its central purpose was to help trainees understand early emotional development, the parent-infant relationship, and the ways unconscious processes emerge from the very beginning of life. It is simply looking at the ways babies' emotional response is shaped by their caregiver. And so we all have heard about attachment relationship, the bonding that happens between mom and baby, and many times we have our own experience, but the infant observation experience is to just be curious and to learn what is happening with this mother and this baby. The Tavistock Clinic in London became the key institution where infant observation was developed and formalized. The approach involves weekly visits by observers who go into the home without pretense and simply watch carefully, reflect on their observations, and record those observations after each visit. So they can't take notes while they're there. They have to hold, their thoughts and their opinions and not try to interject their thoughts, but just observe. That's it. Just go in and watch the baby. Those reflections are then shared in a bi-weekly seminar with other students who engage in discussions that are facilitated by an instructor who I've had the opportunity to be an instructor for the past 4 years now. And so as a method, it is important that students be a non-intrusive observer of the family and focus on the infant's experiences with their environment, which includes the relationship with the primary caregiver, who is most likely the mother, but extends to the ways in which the infant also interacts with other caregivers, as well as everything in their environment. Babies are interacting with everything, including objects, sounds, food, pets, right? They're engaging with everything in the environment. And whatever shapes their environment also influences their development. And that's important for all of us to understand, that whatever shapes their environment influences their development. The observer learns about the infant's likes and dislikes, preferences, and emerging developmental milestones within each of the domains of development. But the hardest thing for the observer to wrestle with is remaining neutral about what they observe and not making assumptions based on their professional knowledge or personal experience. It's very hard to just go in and take off your clinical hat. All of the training that you have received, right? Not bringing in your diagnostic assessments and all of that, but just going into the environment and being curious about what you're seeing and appreciating what you don't know. That's hard for professionals to do, to appreciate what we don't know. But the goal is to maintain a reflective posture, realizing that we are all biased by our experiences and can learn a lot by trusting in the assets that exist within the family. It is our course, in our course materials, Dr. Bix states this: the observer should feel himself sufficiently inside the family to experience the emotional impact. And so I'm getting it all. I'm feeling all the feels, but not committed to act out on any roles thrust upon him, such as giving advice or registering approval or non-approval. And that's hard, to be totally immersed in the home, to feel all the feels, to feel the vibes and all of that, but still hold your own thoughts, your own opinions, right? And that is something that we push with our students in the infant observation course. But as a result, it stretches our understanding in terms of what families need and really what contributes to development of our children. It's not a one-size-fits-all. But all babies learn differently at different rates, right? And so no matter how much you've been trained, no matter how many diagnostic assessments you know, DC 0 to 3, all of them, right? There are still things that we can learn from every individual baby and every individual family. And so one of my favorite childhood books was Curious George. Because George embodies curiosity. And the phrase, stay curious, is a core message associated with the character. What I love about the books was how each book was an adventure. From escaping the zoo, taking a job, or learning the alphabet, everything was an adventure. And although George could not speak, his curious nature spoke to you and how he sought to understand his world. George also had a friend who initially was unnamed and referred to as what? The man with the yellow hat. You all know the book, right? But he later was given the name Theodore Shackelford. You remember that, right? But his role in the book was not to be the center of attention, but to facilitate the adventure by taking George to a location and keeping him safe while he explored his environment. The man with the yellow hat illustrates the role of both the observer and the caregiver to stay curious by providing a safe environment where free exploration is possible, because as the man with the yellow hat would say, the real way to learn anything is to go out and experience it and let your curiosity lead you. Curiosity is infant observation, and in infant observation, it is the engine of discovery. For infants, it drives exploration and growth, and for the observer, It fosters open, reflective attention that makes understanding possible. More specifically, curiosity is one of the earliest motivators of development. Babies are born with an instinct to explore, look, reach, engage with people, and with their environment. In observation, we see how infants use curiosity within the safety of their caregiver's presence, venturing out, then returning for reassurance, like circle of security. This interplay reveals the building blocks of trust and autonomy. As it relates to communication, curiosity expressed through gaze, gestures, vocalizations, and body movements, which offers important information about how the infant seeks connection and makes sense of the world. This was difficult for some babies during the pandemic. Why? Because everyone was wearing masks. And so it was hard for them to make meaning about the gestures and expressions that caregivers and adults were displaying around them. And so this really is a primary tool and shifts focus from diagnosing or explaining to wondering and discovering. It enables students of psychology, psychoanalysts, and social work to develop empathy, patience, and the capacity to think about the emotional life of very young children over time. And it cultivates the professional skills of thinking before acting. That's hard for professionals. We always have to think. We've been trained to think before we do anything, and now you're asking me to think before acting. And this is essential in therapy and in caregiving work. That we question what we're seeing rather than immediately making meaning of it. That we appreciate the interactions that every parent and child and caregiver is having with each other, and not assign our own values, our own prescriptions, but just appreciate. And I think that there's something that we have been really challenged with, especially in these United States of America, and I won't get into all of the reasons why. But we can take a step back and not try to look at each other and assign meaning or ascribe, our own thoughts and values upon other people, but just appreciate each other. And I think that our nation is in a moment where very little thinking before acting is being done. At a policy level, we have seen resources being stripped from every social program designed to serve families. There is a public assault on diversity and inclusion. Access to health care has become more difficult, and we have failed to keep our children safe in schools. Our families are in crisis, and some of them would have the audacity, or some people would have the audacity to say that it is the fault of the family. It is very narcissistic to think that communities of people, through their own volition, remain stuck in a cycle of poverty when they have no control over the infrastructure that perpetuates their poor outcomes. If having the moral will to change systems of oppression was enough, slavery would not have lasted 250 years, and women and children would not have been seen as property of those who held power. It is time that we stop faulting those who have had to fight for their liberty and build systems that work for everyone. It is time that we stop protecting political interests and protect the rights of our In 2023, post-pandemic, the Children's Defense Fund reports 130,000 children were living in poverty in the state of Minnesota, and 152,000 children who receive SNAP benefits are at risk of being impacted by recent cuts. And thank God we just heard from Diane that that did not happen, but there's still some things that we have to be concerned about. The Minnesota Compass reports 21% of births in Minnesota lack adequate prenatal care, and 1 in 5 children move residence in the past year due to the expiration of benefits received during the pandemic. I can tell you that one of our partner schools has about 29% of their student population that are homeless and highly mobile. That, in my mind, is unacceptable. And knowing that, we should be able to respond. We should be able to respond as a community, and we should be able to respond as a state. But more importantly, we should have the desire to respond as humanity. We are humanity. We represent humanity. And when we hear these kinds of things about our children and the conditions of our children and what they are having to live through and develop through, we should want to respond. Children have no stake in the economy. And this is my call to action. Children create no policies, and children have no control over inflation, nor do their parents. And my call to action is that we stay curious. Just like the infant observer, we need systems that allow families to create safe, supportive environments for their children. We need systems that will not be pretentious in their understanding of what families need, but will give them the opportunities to explore options that work best for them. This is the moment that we're in. This is what we have to do. This is the call to action. And as I take my seat this morning and get into a conversation with Angela, I just want to tell you I returned recently from Ghana, and we visited an orphanage there. And I was so impressed when we got there because we were told that 72 children lived at this orphanage. But when we got there, there were about 50, and we were like, well, where are the rest of the children? And so they said that 20 of them have gone on to college. Now, let me tell you, this is in Ghana, where there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of poverty. And for these children, they have been rescued from human trafficking. Many of them have had traumatic backgrounds. Many of them have been abandoned. But the pastor who runs the orphanage, he made it up in his mind that he was going to create an environment that didn't feel institutional or clinical, but that it felt like home. And so when you go there, you see how they love on the children. They create a safe space for the children. They are responsive to the children. They play with the children. Everyone does everything together. They look out for each other. They play, they laugh, they eat, they worship. They do everything together. And so he has literally created an environment where these children can thrive. And so it dawned on me that it is not really as much about their circumstances as much as it is about the environment that we create for them. And it is something that we can also learn from here, because we tend to think about what children are going through, what their backgrounds have been. We talk a lot about trauma, but the reality is that environment trumps circumstance. If we create the right environment for our children, they can thrive. It's not about the assessments. It's not about what they can or cannot do. The adults are on the table. We are on the ballot, right? It is up to us to be able to create the environments where our children can thrive. The reality is we have not done a good job. We have to do better. And I don't mean to preach to anyone, but I'm very, I am a preacher. Okay, you got me again. I'm not 30, and yes, I am a preacher. Okay, you got me. But my heart burns for the children of our country, and especially in our state, because I know that Minnesota is one of the most rich resource states in the union. And there's no reason why our children should be suffering and struggling in all of the areas, whether it is academically, health-wise, emotionally. We can do better. And so my call to action for us is to be curious and to find out, what can we do? What more can we do? Look at the children, look at the families, look at their needs, and find out what we can do, and let's respond. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now that I fumbled through that, okay. I now get the pleasure of introducing my very dear friend, Angela Watts. And she is currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer at North Point Health and Wellness Center. Previous to this role, Angela was the Director of Health Equity and Strategy Initiatives and Impact for Hennepin County, working with Health and Human Services, public health community engagement teams to support maternal and child public health activities, and creating community-driven solutions to improve health disparities and inequities for all residents of the county, but special focus with BIPOC and cultural communities. Angela has spent her entire career advocating, creating change, and supporting families. Although Angela considers Minnesota home, she is originally from St. Louis, Missouri, where she worked at the first healthcare system in the country to receive the prestigious Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. Let's welcome Angela Watts, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Andre, what you been up to?
Oh, you know, I'm just hanging out, being curious, that's all. I'm curious.
You know, Andre, just been a collaborator with you, a colleague with you, supporter of you, follower of you for many years. You know, I have known you for over a decade and a half. I know that you bring your whole self, all parts of yourself to this work, as we've observed through your keynote today. You are a father, you are a grandfather, community leader, faith leader, educator. Why is this topic, based upon all your cumulative experiences, important right now?
Yes, thank you so much. So I became a father at 32 years old. There again, I'm not 30, but my son is now 23. But when I married my wife, I had a 12-year-old son. And I told you a little bit about my biological father, that I lost him. I was 2 years old when we lost him, so I really never had a relationship with him. My mother remarried when I was 7 years old to who is now my father. I don't believe in steps, so I've already taken enough steps. I stopped with that, but he is my father. He raised me. He was a model of fatherhood for me. His name is Michael Milton, and I love him dearly. But, you know, he and I struggled to have a connection because, you know, he's from the South. I was born in the North. You know, he is a Omega Psi-Phi. He is a Q dog, and I hadn't been to college yet. There's a lot of things that, you know, we had different. He's an outdoorsman. I'm not that much of an outdoorsman. I will go fishing, but I don't like it all that much, right? I got to be on a boat. If I'm on a boat, you got me, right? But he and I struggled to make that bonding connection. And so although he was a great role model for being a man, getting up every day, going to work, dressing up, suit and tie, all the things, right? We didn't know how to connect with each other. And so when I became a father to my 12-year-old son at that time, I again, could only parent based on what my experience had been. And so it was hard for me to make a connection with him. I thought, getting up every day, going out like my father had done, was enough to teach him that I loved him. But it wasn't enough. And so we struggled. I love my son dearly now, but it wasn't until my youngest son was born that I decided that I was going to do something different. Rather than trying to use the same practices that I thought would work, that obviously were not working, I decided to put myself in the learner's seat and to be curious and to allow my youngest son to teach me how to be a father, right? And so it is that position, that posture of, really putting myself in the learning seat and being open to what's possible and allowing myself to be taught by my son that really changed my view on my relationship with my oldest son, enhanced my connection to my youngest son, and gave me a desire to want to champion the cause of fathers moving forward, because I know what it's like now to be a father, right? And I know that many fathers want to connect with their children, but because of how they were parented, because of their experiences, they may not know how to do it. So I just took it upon myself to say it's important that we, in this moment, begin to teach not just fathers, but all adults how to be there for their babies in meaningful ways that are going to contribute to healthy development.
That's outstanding. So curiosity has been your driver.
Absolutely.
We've had these conversations over the past 10 years at Little Moments Count. And, I want to go there in a way that is very concrete for some people who are thinking, yeah, great, Andre, you've come on this journey and this is where you are, you're sharing this with us. But for many parents who are in this period right now, and they feel like I'm parenting, I'm a caregiver, I have limited time, right? How can caregivers, parents bring more curiosity into everyday routines, trying to maximize that time and interaction with their kids, their children, their infants? How can they bring into everyday routines like feeding or diapering or playtime so they can become opportunities for connections? Can you explore a little bit on that?
Absolutely. Quality, not quantity. Many parents feel like they have to be there for every moment, right? I can remember when my youngest son was learning how to ride a bike, I really wanted to be that person that taught him how to ride a bike, right? But unfortunately, it was someone else that taught him how to ride a bike. I felt like I missed the moment, right? But there are ways that, we can then go back and create new opportunities, right? And that's the curious part, is that we get stuck into thinking that one size fits all. This is all I can do. I don't have time to sit down and read. I don't have time to sing. And I don't really like singing because I don't really have a great voice, But we limit ourselves in terms of what we are able to do in terms of meaningful interactions with our children. Just being present a lot of times is enough, right? We have to remind ourselves as parents that we are the heroes in the lives of our children, and they look up to us, right? And we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to get it right every time, right? But we can pay attention, right? Pay attention to what our children's likes or dislikes are, the way that we smile, the way that we interact with them, the body language, like I mentioned in my talk, the gestures that we make. I remember my son and I, we used to go out to dinner, and I would do this little thing at the dinner table, and then he would mock me. And my wife was like, "What are you doing? That is stupid," right? But I'm bonding with my child, right? And it was our thing, right? And I wasn't singing, I wasn't reading, but it was just our thing, and he would do it, right? And so then I would find time to sing to him at night, because I do like to sing, and I would sing the song to him every night. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, little Scooter. We called him Scooter. Close your eyes, close your eyes. And so I did that for like 5 years, and then after 5 years, I stopped. But he would come some nights, and he would say, "Hey, Dad, come on in. You know the routine." So, without knowing it, I had created a routine with my son that he did, and now he's one of the best singers in the state. Now,
Right,
he's
right,
going
right.
all over. He sung with Known for many years. He sang with the Minnesota Boys Choir, traveled all around the country, and he just loves music, and I think I had something to do with it.
Yeah, probably so.
Still don't have the best voice, but it was the moment, finding the little moments and making them count, right?
Yeah, those routines and connections. Do you all still do the head thing?
Yeah, so every night he's like, "No, Dad, no, not anymore. We're not doing that."
Yeah.
But I still go like, "Yeah."
As a former clinical social worker, I'm like everybody else, trained to assess, got to get my pens, my paper, ask all the right questions. I really want to help provide support, get to the root cause, get into it, getting some background information. And in hearing your talk and conversation, and we've been talking about this topic even prior to you doing your keynote, it really had me reflect in terms of my own journey about assessment and diagnostic, and I know they're important, so I don't want to minimize that. But what happens when adults make assumptions instead of approaching infants, particularly our youngest babies, with curiosity?
Yes, and thank you for mentioning, we don't minimize the diagnostic assessments and all of the things that we've been trained, the tools that we've been given, right? They're very important for us to really understand what's happening with children and, to look at the signs to be able to respond and intervene when necessary and when appropriate. However, we cannot allow ourselves to put children in a box, right? And when we do that, then we cut off their developmental potential, right? I am just convinced that, children need to be able to make mistakes. They need to be able to learn in their way and in their time, right? Every child is not going to talk at the same rate, but that doesn't mean that we have to be alarmed, right? My grandchildren, they took a little bit longer to start talking than other children, right? But we weren't alarmed, and now they talk more than I can really stand, actually. Got too many questions. They can talk more articulately than me. But, we did have some interventions, but, we had to allow that development to happen at its own pace, right? And we had to really respond in a way that was encouraging, that was supportive, because if we had taken a deficit approach and allow fear to lead us, then it would have created fear in terms of their dynamic. And we all know how trauma works. Like even at an early age, those pathways in the brains are being created, and we don't really understand how often these fears that we have as adults got started, right? Well, much of it is, the environment, the interactions, but also just the ways in which those fears and interactions have been interpreted to us, that have caused us to adapt to our environment, right?
Right.
And so when we can create environments where children feel like they are capable, that they are able and safe with boundaries, with structure, that is where I believe they thrive, and those healthy pathways are created. And then if we're paying attention, we reinforce the things that will make them grow and develop in healthy ways.
So I think I hear you saying that it's more so about an asset strength-based approach.
Absolutely.
Rather than look at the tool as the diagnostic as a deficit base.
Yeah.
Instead of finding out what's wrong with you, what's right with you, what can we build on, what can we improve on. Taking the fear away, and in a lot of ways, like Diane is saying, replacing it with love and joy, taking delight in that child. I really love that direction. So how can observing with curiosity strengthen the parent and child bond? You talked about it a little bit, but many people think, a baby can't talk. They don't maybe even sending the baby respond. But how do those interactions, that early upstream point, really strengthen that bond between the parent and the child?
Yeah, so in infant observations, another challenge for the observer is watching a baby sleep. and thinking that there's nothing that is happening. Like, I don't know what to write about because all they did was sleep the whole time, right? And so what we encourage them to do is to watch the baby sleep, right? What are we looking for? Well, you're looking for gestures. You're looking for breathing patterns. You're looking for small movements, right? That may show us something about, the baby's likes and dislikes, discomforts. And then it gives us something to respond to, how they wake up, how they go to sleep, all plays into development. Making sure that they are able and they are taking deep breaths. I mean, it says something about their health. And so I used to stay up all night watching my son sleep. I found a lot to watch. But if we are, just going in looking at the actions that babies are making or non-actions, and then we're trying to diagnose that, then we're missing a lot in terms of what we're able to capture. And even just, the small movements that children have when they are playing, the way that they are grabbing, the fine motor skills, the gross motor skills, just being able to pay attention to every aspect of that child's development and appreciate every moment, right? Is so important. It's really important.
As you were talking, I was thinking about my days at the Children's Museum when we used to just observe. It was just so joyful to watch those interactions, to watch them explore, to see their curiosity in them, and see how they reacted to a certain environment, and to watch those parents be able to stand back, know their children were safe in a safe space where they could interact with other children, they could see themselves, they could really delight in their children. Right. So I think I know what you're talking about is really important, but so much of our culture and our professional training has taught us to think about getting ready, right, for the next phase or the next developmental stage. So how do our own expectations, because parents have and caregivers have an innate worry, like, is my child on track? Am I doing the right thing as a parent? So how do our own expectations and worries get in the way of seeing babies and infants in that moment? What can we do different? How do we shift some of the thinking, some of the conversation around that, and some of the ability to be able to explore?
Yeah, and I think that, part of being curious is being open. Like, that's my working definition for being curious. I'm open to what's possible, right? And a lot of times our fears shut us off of what's possible, right? We learned this in Circle of Security, the shark music. Anybody know about the shark music, right? And a lot of times we perpetuate our own fears on our children. And then again, we restrict their environment. And, we begin to really dictate to them what their development is going to look like, right? And based on our own fears again. And so this is where reflective practice really comes into play. And I think as professionals and as parents, we have to begin to question ourselves. What am I feeling? What are my fears? What am I worried about if my child goes out and exploring? And then where does that come from, right? We talk about angels, ghosts in the nursery and angels in the nursery, those bad experiences that we had when we were children that continue to influence our parenting, right? We have to begin to ask ourselves some questions. So again, it is being quite curious. It's being curious about our babies and what's happening with them and their environment, but also being curious about, why am I feeling the way I feel? Why do I think the way that I think as a parent? What am I holding on to, right, that I can't let go to allow my child to thrive in this environment that I've created for them?
I love that ghosts in the nursery, angels in the nursery.
Yeah.
So your own experiences are kind of do inform your parenting. Yeah. But you're saying by being curious and open, we can step back a little bit
Yeah.
and be more open to what can be before us in those moments.
Yeah, because the angels in the nursery recognizes that not all of the experiences we had were bad. There were some good things that we could
Right.
carry into our parenting. I think about, many people say this all the time, but I'll never be like my parent. And then you become one. All of a sudden you're a parent, right? And there's something innately about a mother in particular that you just have to protect your children. I think we see that in all living organisms, the mother instinct is something that causes us to want to respond to our children, and that looks different, right? And so, when I say, we have to ask ourselves our questions and, question our motives and our fears and all of that, that's valid. But at the same time, there's something innately good about wanting to respond and protect your children, right? So it's a balance. And as parents, we just have to create enough space to know what our motivations are when we show up and engage with our children.
Fantastic. Now, I think you and I had touched on this earlier in some of our interactions getting ready for Little Moments Count. So I want to be clear about what I'm saying. This is a holiday time, right? The time of year when community toy drives happen and, toys become prominent and commercial marketing become prominent, and parents really want to feel that space for their children. We know with high tariffs, high costs, not all parents can afford to buy the things they think that their children need. And I even talked to my team about the balance of trying to get toys into homes and parents feeling inadequate when they can't feel that resource. And it's important. Concrete resources are very important, right? What other messages and supports can we provide to parents during this time of commercialism?
Okay. How much time do we have left? I have an unpopular opinion on this. The lack of toys and resources in this season is probably a good thing, because nothing can replace the presence of a parent. Nothing is more meaningful than quality interactions, one-on-one interactions with children. I am the toy, right? My grandchildren will jump all over me. They will want to play games with me. They will want to sing with me. Frank, you know this. You're a new grandpa. It's like there's no toy that can replace grandpa. Let me just tell you, right? And we have too many distractions already in our environment that prevents us from having meaningful one-on-one interactions with our children. And so our children already have more toys than they need. And they don't play with half of the toys that they have, right? They may have a favorite toy. They'll carry that thing around until they get tired, but they have short attention span. So that's not going to last more than a week, right? Mm-hmm. And then, it's sitting around. But you can never replace a smile. You can never replace a hug, right? You can never replace kind words, encouraging words. You can never have enough fun with a caring adult, right? And we have to realize that it is our presence that matters the most to children, not the toys, not the things that we provide for them. Food is probably good, but,
Yeah.
they probably appreciate that. But it is our presence. Nothing can replace the presence of a caring adult in the life of a child.
I agree. The best gift you can give is yourself.
Absolutely.
But I also want to say, please support Toys for Tots.
I told you it was an unpopular opinion.
Right, but yes.
Right? Yes, we
But
do
realize
want to
the best
support
gift you
those.
can give to your child is yourself. This is the part where I'm really excited about. We can have some time to get some questions from the audience if we have, but I want to set the theme going forward. You gave us a powerful call to action, curiosity. Mm-hmm. As leaders, we're all leaders in this room and online, whether it's over your own household, running a family supporting program, doing work in the community like we heard earlier this morning. As leaders, How can we cultivate a culture of curiosity among our parents and caregivers and families? Some of this is new information for some people. Some people are on the cutting edge. Some want to go deeper. How can we as leaders really cultivate curiosity?
By being curious ourselves. Next question.
Easier said than done, my
Right,
friend.
easier said than done. No, I think, curiosity is a posture, right? It's a posture that says that I'm not always the expert. I don't always have all the answers. And I think that as a professionals, we can model that for parents, that it's okay not to know, right? And to wonder, right? At the same time, I think there's also an opportunity for us to really be curious about the possibilities, right? That every moment presents a possibility. It may not look exactly the way you want it to look or you think that it should look, but every moment presents an opportunity if we are asking ourselves the right questions. And I'll give you an example. Children have a tendency to turn a bottle into a cell phone. It makes no sense to us at all, right? But to them, it has some meaning. They can make meaning of this, right? They may have a wild imagination, right? And they may say things that make no sense at all. They may have friends we will never see, but it means something to them. And the best thing that we can do as adults is to lean into that, right? This is for fathers, and we talk about this with fathers all the time. Fathers have a challenge sometimes with playing dress up, right? And doing nails and all of that. But if I have a 3-year-old daughter who wants to spend time doing nails and wants to do dress up and do my hair, I'll find a wig to put on, right? That does not jeopardize my manhood, and it should not, right? But I can lean in to the moment with my children. And I think that this is what professionals can also do with parents as well, because we have different cultures, we have different backgrounds, different ways of being, different things that we are accustomed to. Some families love cooking. Some families love outdoors. I may not be familiar with it. I may have a real problem with taking a baby out on a boat on a fishing trip because I got fears around that, right? But for some families, that is important, right? That they start to teach their family traditions and customs to their children early. And so I have to, as a professional, lean into that, right? So everybody just say, lean into it. Part of curiosity and this posture of being open is also being able to lean into the things we're not accustomed to, we're not comfortable with, we don't know a lot about. I just told you that I came back from Ghana, and I can tell you that in Africa, there's a lot of customs that I'm not accustomed to, right? We just don't do a lot of things like eating from the same bowl and all those kinds of things. But, I had to learn to lean into it, right? And what I discovered is I actually liked it. It wasn't that bad, right? And so we have to, we grow when we are curious, when we are open to new things that we don't know. And not only do we grow, we build relationships, we build bridges, we create society in magical and meaningful ways that will be lasting over generations and generations. And that's why I had that strong call to action. I just think if we have a different posture, if we can lean in and be curious, we will be better as a people and as a community.
I agree wholeheartedly. This is going to be one of the last questions. I hope we have time for the audience. I'm inspired by what you saw in Ghana and your trips. As a person who spent most of their career in system change, and I still believe in it, you got me thinking very differently now. It's really about the environment we shape and create in this moment right now. since we have people who are online and in the audience want to leave this space doing something different, how do we support parents, caregivers, and our home visitors? And like Inspire, we heard from this morning, who are already doing the work, but want to go deeper and create the kind of environment that's going to be a catalyst for our children. What do you have in terms of suggestions or follow-up that we can continue to do this work and build on this conversation?
Yeah, I think in terms of creating environment, you really have to understand the family and what's important to them. There's something called a value-based system, right? And the value-based system honors what is important to people. When I went to that orphanage and, I saw, the place where the children were living, if I use the same standards that I'm accustomed to in America, then I would say that their environment was inadequate. And that would be a very detrimental mindset to have, right? To assume that what they have is not enough for them. And to assume that what I have is better is a very detrimental stance. Not only for the people that I want to serve or I say that I want to serve, but for me. Because really, I limit my perspective. We make a lot of assumptions about what is enough. And I'm very careful about, telling children, even when we think about proficiency in school and, you got to meet this mark and all of that. And yes, we have to have standards. I'm not against that. But we have to get to a place where we can appreciate the growth, where we can appreciate the movement, right? Everything doesn't move at the same place and in the same way, right? Everything is not shaped in the same way. And, I'm seeing Joe here, who is all into data. And I know, don't beat me up after this. But, we believe in being data driven. But if data is all that we can look to, we've missed the mark. We have to come up with other indicators of success that would demonstrate that children are getting what they need, that parents are doing the right things, and that we can create environments where families can thrive, right? If we don't pause and take another look and honor the values that families have, the things that they feel are important, the environments that work for them, and not try to push on them our own ideas, then we're just not going to ever get to the place that we want to be as a society. So that's how I would answer that. We can create environments that are values-based on the needs of the family and on the children.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have time for a question in the audience? Thank you.
So we're going to open up the opportunity here for those of you in the audience. If anyone has a question, I'll have a mic on this side, and Thea's going to grab the other side of the room. And these would probably be directed to Andre, but Angela is a notable expert herself, so she should jump right in. And while you're thinking, we have somebody who's gathering questions from all our friends online. So I'll get you started with one that came in online. It has to do with the evaluation of early childhood programs and initiatives. Mm-hmm. So it's a broad question to you about how do we evaluate, or how could we evaluate quality early childhood programs and initiatives?
Yeah. We need Diane up here to
Yes,
talk about the
right.
4-star rated system.
I'm going to let Diane, you want to say anything? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll just say that I think when we think about quality, that is still under review, right? And but what we know is that there are certain developmental milestones that we can look to give us an indication of how well children are doing on this developmental pathway. We have assessments like the IGDs and those kinds of tools that we can use. But, really, again, I would just challenge us to really also pay attention to the growth that is happening and not just be stuck to what, the milestones say children should be here by this age and there by the next age, because then, we just create undue stress, right, for the parents. And, with that environment impacts the child. But there are things that, we want to, we're looking at, talking, walking, crawling, the fine motor skills. We are looking at attention. These are all things that we are looking at to know that children are on track, or they may be a little bit behind and need a little more support, is really the way that I look at it. But they can still get there. And then carrying that attitude and that mindset that no matter where they are on the developmental pathway, they can get there with some scaffolding, with some support. And so I think that's important.
You said, I don't have on my professional hat now. I'm being curious and open. Yes. Any other questions?
Yeah, we got a couple now in the audience. Please say your name and who you're affiliated with, and then ask your question.
My name is Lexis Kesey. I work at Momentum Advocacy in government relations and touch a lot of early education policy and disability policy. But I'm also a mother of two. Lived in Minneapolis my whole life. Both my kids go to Minneapolis public schools. And you kind of mentioned something about the way that trauma travels through generations. I'm curious, specifically, I sometimes when I'm in a moment with my child, I can feel myself in fight or flight. And I can't stop that. I can't stop that because I'm in the moment. Yeah. And maybe what I'm frightened of or what's causing me to pause had real life consequences, in generations prior. So it really is a way to keep your pulse on the temperature on safety. How tips, and then this is an advice question. How can you bring that curiosity back in when there is real safety concerns, especially raising neurodivergent kids and kids that come up through COVID, and maybe honestly parents who didn't have the tools themselves bringing up kids and not having the tools themselves? How can we approach with curiosity and safety, and also when you're activated? Do you have advice?
Yeah. Do you want to say anything?
It's really ironic you said that question. You have that question or that statement and sharing your own experience. Andre and I were talking about this, even as we move forward. How do we create a culture, a system, a network that supports parents, children, and early childhood people? What is that like? And one of the things that I think that in working with Andre over the years, and really in this last year and a half around COVID, was really looking at reflective practice and how we can begin to scaffold that in communities and build networks around that. Reflective practice is a powerful strategy and tool. And I know Andre has a deep insight in that. I know you're doing some of that work at NAS. We've been talking about how can we spread that across. You want to share a little bit of your thoughts around that, how we can create that and make that more concrete and relevant for people who are just getting into that experience?
Yeah. I was just thinking about that we talked earlier about mother instinct, right? And instinctually, we can sense when our children are in danger, right? And part of that is really knowing what their needs are, right? So if they are neurodivergent, really, having a thought about what environment we need to create that is safe. And then, so those are the boundaries, right? And those boundaries can look different based on the needs of our children, right? But then, in terms of our own reality, right, and the fears that we carry as parents, creating space for us to really process the moment and respond rather than react, right? And even in a crisis, right, sometimes we can make the wrong moves if we are reacting just, to our fears. And so we really want to make sure that we are being intentional by creating space, right, to respond based on the information that we have, right, but then also the situation, right, and being able to see what's really happening. And if it is, in fact, danger, or is it just our fear? That can happen pretty quickly, right, because of the mother instinct, right? And so I think we see that a lot And a lot of times we don't trust ourselves, right, in those moments, right? And I would just encourage you to trust yourself, because you do, as a mother and as a professional, have enough knowledge, expertise, and wisdom to make the right choice in those moments, right? And so I think, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take the pressure off.
Yeah.
Say, I think, I would trust you to make the right decision as a professional and as a mother, right? For sure.
You talk a little bit about reflective practice too.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I think reflective practice is another thing that, we haven't really operationalized across the early childhood system. I think it is a modality that some people use. We use reflective supervision. And so it is really about, how you are showing up, what you are thinking, what values you are bringing to the situation, what fears you are bringing to the situation, and, how do you need to move differently, right? And so, and when I say move differently, it is about not being instinctual so much as, really being thoughtful and honest about your posture. And if I need to change my posture, I'm creating space for me to do that, right? I'm not just solely dependent on my professional hat or my knowledge and skills. Sometimes, I just have to, think about, and there's something called metacognition, which is thinking about the way we think, right? And so, sometimes we have to think, am I thinking this way because of an experience I had, or is this valid? We have to test ourselves, right? And that seems like a lot, but it's a practice. Right. Reflective practice takes time, right? And if we exercise the tool to pause, ask ourselves some questions, be honest with ourselves, find the reality, and then respond, then it becomes natural over time, right? And so it's something that we do need to talk more about and figure out ways that we can operationalize it in any helping profession, whether it is in the medical field, early childhood, and education. As adults, we need to be more reflective. We need to be more curious.
I love it. As I'm thinking about grandma wisdom, right? Why is it that if you're fortunate enough to have family in this area or have extended family, every baby, it seems like, when you get that grandma hand, they just kind of know. And what it is, it just feels different, right? It's a strength of knowing and an innate connection that happens with that. Yeah. So sometimes it's just that wisdom that comes from experience and safety.
And knowing yourself.
Right.
The big part of knowing is knowing yourself. And if you don't know yourself, you can't really engage appropriately with families that you don't know.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Andre, for your keynote about curiosity. My name is Rebecca. And I liked what you talked about, and I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase this question. But, with the assessments, I think that it is something that is important. But you mentioned how sort of with your grandchildren, they talked later, but I'm just can you elaborate more on how we can model that as a society? Because like you mentioned, every child grows and learns differently without us kind of feeling like, oh, maybe something is wrong. How do we let children just sort of grow and learn without always being something is wrong or they're not meeting the milestone? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Rebecca. So I think that we have to trust. Trust is a big factor. We have to trust the developmental process. And we have to understand that, especially in the first 1,000 days, which is really what Little Moments Count is about, the brain is really malleable. And so even when things may seem to be going off track, we can do something to help, get the brain back on track, if you will. I hate to say it that way, but the reality is that, there may be some things that we can be concerned about, but we don't have to live in that concern, right? That we can do something. And the reason why we have tools is so we can begin to formulate a plan, right, to help this child thrive developmentally, right? And so we have to trust that process and trust that, babies didn't come as a blank slate, that while they are developing and taking in their environment, they are also adapting too. And they adapt differently and at different rates, right? That looks different, but they get there, right? And sometimes just with that support, just with that smile, that, knowing that there's a caring adult there, creating that environment is really what helps them to get there, right? And so I think just trusting the process, we hear that a lot, right? Like, trust the process, right? But it's hard for us to do that, right? Especially when we have history and knowledge and expertise. But I would just encourage us, with wisdom, to trust the process.
Wisdom.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello, my name is Kathy Gomez. I'm with the Prenatal to 3 Coalition and work with LaCroix and Loon Consulting. Great to see you both.
Good to see you.
I am curious to know what your thoughts are around what we can do as advocates, I'm doing systems level change, how we can better center and advocate for fathers as part of, as parents, as full parents, but also as an important protective factor for children.
Absolutely. You're talking my language now. How much time we got? No, just kidding. So I have been fortunate to co-author a paper called Reproductive Justice and Supports for Young Fathers. The paper was really focused on fathers 18 to 24 because that is the age group where there are so many barriers for fathers to really engage. There are a lot of myths, especially with black fathers, about how they engage with their fathers. And what we have learned is that black fathers, the CDC said a few years ago, are the most engaged of any other racial group, right? But, what we have heard historically was based upon whether or not the father was a custodial parent or if they were married, right? And so when you factor in that, then the data becomes skewed in terms of the idea of father engagement, right? Because then you're looking at how often the father is there, how long the father is there, and all that, but you're not looking at the quality of interactions, right? What the study showed is that fathers are doing bath time. They're there for feeding. They're there for bedtime. They're there for longer periods of time, right? And so I think from a policy standpoint, we have to begin to create a new narrative around the needs of specific fathers. Another, issue is that we don't really honor or think about LGBTQ fathers. They exist. Right? And so our systems are not designed to support them. Our systems are not always designed to encourage fathers to feel like they are a part. Even in our medical systems, and Dr. Singh, we've talked a lot about this already. We've done a lot of work around this, right? But fathers want to feel like they're visible, not invisible. Fathers want to feel like they have expertise and they have input. When you go to a well child visit, sometimes fathers never get questions directed at them, right? And so what are the policies that we can begin to champion that would support fathers in these cases? I can go to, family court and the number of fathers and stories that we hear about fathers who just have or feel like they have no rights over their children, especially if their names are not on the birth certificate. We can go down a rabbit hole on that. But there are just so many issues that fathers are trying to fight up against just to be present when they want to, right? And then to turn around and have society say, oh, we have an issue with fatherhood. Really, the issue is not that fathers are absent, the fathers are hidden. The fathers are challenged. The fathers are restricted. The fathers are marginalized. And we have to begin to take an honest look at that and address it at a policy level. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's
Andre?
not to say that some fathers aren't absent too. Let me just say that. Because when I say these things, right, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Wrap
When
it
I
up.
say these things, you would think that I'm advocating, one way or another. But we have to have a balanced society, again, where the policies work for everyone. The resources are distributed to everyone, right? And, when we start to get into, conversations about reproductive justice, a lot of times we don't consider the father in that.
Right.
And we have to begin to challenge those notions, right?
So, Andre, I'm going to stay curious. I'm going to give you a call to action on behalf of this group. We're hoping by the next few little moments count, we'll be here to read your book in written form, and you'll be able to do something published for us. It'll be a how-to guide for many of us. Thank you so much for this topic, for sharing your story and sharing your journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Are you, like me, more curious this morning? I'm Pahua Hoffman, and I get to work at Health Partners, overseeing our government and community relations, and I just want to thank several people. First of all, Deshandru, thank you for your partnership and being our gracious host today at NPR in this beautiful room. Thanks to our tech team running all the tech and making it work smoothly. So thanks to you. I also want to thank Munira. Thank you for coming in and talking to us about Inspired Change Clinic. It was wonderful to have you as a colleague, and now it's wonderful to have you as a partner in the community. I also want to thank Diane Halsey. Your words, several stayed with me. Stay grounded in hope, and do not let our circumstances steal our joy. I'm going to take that with me this morning. I want to thank Allison Corrado. Thank you for your partnership at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and also as a partner with the Start Early Funders Coalition, so thank you. And thank you for presenting the awards this morning to Lee Turney, our Nancy Lattimore Award, so congratulations to him again. And also to the Birth to Three team for their first 1,000 Days Award. Thanks to them and the Pierce County Public Health. And thanks to Angela for this really wonderful Q&A session. You always come up with such thoughtful questions, and certainly we benefited from them today, so thank you. Mr. Andre Dukes. I don't know what to say. I'm just so moved this morning, and so many things you said will stay with me. But I think this notion of staying curious, whether we're talking about early childhood, which we are this morning, or just in general, I think in our lives, and I'm going to take that. And I love this idea of facilitate the adventure. It being the engine of discovery and be open to what's possible. So many thanks to you for being our keynote speaker this morning. And I also want to thank our audience who braved the snow and joined us in person, and all of those online. So thank you for joining us here. And I always forget to do this, so I'm going to do this now and not wait to the end. It takes a team to put this together. So you probably met or saw Taylor greeting you in the morning, this morning downstairs. So thank you to Taylor, Marna, Thea Bryan, Andrea Bork, Frank Forsberg, and team members I might not be naming by name. Thank you for making this event happen for us. And deepest thank you to our funders. This slide represents those with more formal contributions, but we deeply thank all of our 128 partners for all the ways that you've partnered and supported Little Moments Count this year. As always, we are hoping to get your thoughts about this event this morning. Please use this QR code to survey. It links to the survey, and tell us what you think and what you'd like to see next year. And that's something that sometimes we don't make clear, is it's based on the feedback that we get from participants either online or in person, that we do look into your comments and we do put together the programming based on that feedback, so thank you. If you are new to Little Moments Count, we'd like to invite you to get connected with us. We'd love to have you join us, and I think part of the theme this morning is Meet the Moment, so we want you to meet the moment together with us. I have a bit of exciting news. So in 2025, we completed phase 1 and 2 of discovery for a new strategic plan for Little Moments Count for the next 10 years. Phase 3 is coming in 2026. So the team is working on launching a new strategic planning, RFP. We will be looking for a community engagement facilitator to help us do this. So look out for that RFP coming out in March. Some more to come there. I want to leave with this one last thing that Andre said, and I think it's clear in the name of our program, but this call to action for all of us to find the little moments and make them count. So let's continue to partner to support one another in 2026 and take on that challenge together. I want to thank each and every one of you again, and we'll see you back here in 2026. Thank you.